Just waiting for, see if we get, so maybe we should get started. We're recording this webinar so that people that are signing on later can catch up. So I'm
Ben,
yeah. So I'm Ben Schogler. I'm one of the founders of Skoogmusic, and with me here is Rob Laffan, who's the founder of TippyTalk, and we are here to there we go. So here's some tips on social inclusion, talking about some experiences that we've had and experienced through the work that we've both been doing. Skoog, we work in kind of multisensory learning and developing technology for accessibility, particularly around music and inclusion. And we've been doing that for the last 10 years or so. And I'll just let Rob say a little bit about himself and what you've been up to.
Cheers, Ben. Thanks. Yeah, my name is Rob Laffan, and you can tell from my accent I'm an Irish guy, and I founded TippyTalk about 4 years ago. So what TippyTalk is a software communication platform that allows people who are nonverbal translate a picture into a text message that's sent out to their phone. So basically, it allows a person who's nonverbal to communicate outside the room in any environment they wish. Really. So my own background is engineering. I'm a robotic engineer. And my most important job in the world is I'm an autism parent to a young girl called Sadie. And Sadie was nonverbal. She was the whole inspiration and the reason why I created TippyTalk to help her communicate originally, and managed to spin it out to 50 countries, a couple of thousand users in each country, available in 17 different languages.
And it's not just outside the room with a platform like Tippy. It can be within a group or within a context, you know, in terms of a social group, you know, the way that kids are using devices now. So I think just one of the things, I suppose, just highlight the kind of maybe some of the things that we're going to chat about in the wider context around social inclusion. I think there's maybe three sort of main themes that we're going to have a look at, and one is looking at opportunities for activities or experiences, particularly in terms of learning experiences and social experiences, and you know, providing access to those is a key thing for promoting or enabling social inclusion. A big thing from my perspective in terms of technology is making sure that those opportunities are interactive, so that people are able to play an active role. I think there's an interesting, there's probably all seen it, there's a really interesting or sort of well-used diagram about the difference between integration and inclusion, where you have, you know, the different ways that these kind of different practices are done. And I think, you know, unless you make it interactive for individuals, you'll never really get inclusion. And then we talk a bit about the multi-sense, you know, how do you make those situations interactive? And I think in the context, particularly of accessibility, you need to have a look at multi-sensory approaches or different styles of communication, supporting different styles of learner, different ways of interacting to really do that. But coming back to the first point about looking at opportunities for activities or social interaction, Rob, maybe you could, you know, have a lead in with that in terms of your thoughts and how that really sets up, particularly around maybe the way that children are engaging in language and communication, how engaging in social activities really is a foundation for that.
Sure. So the way I was seeing it, like, we've got to create some space for inclusion, especially when it comes to activities and the like as well, like, you know, and I see that a lot from TippyTalk as well, like, you know, once we give people the opportunity, they're able to take part in this then as well, like, you know. So I can give you an example then as well, one of the stories I have, if you're interested in here. So this particular TippyTalk user, his name is Jamie, and he's not too far from where you're living now. He's in Newcastle, just a little bit south of the border of you there, like, you know. This young man, he's social. Oh, very good, excellent. Small world, so. Yeah. Well, look, this guy, he's I think he's about 19 years old now. But when he started using TippyTalk originally, he was 17, and his social network consisted basically of his parents and his grandparents, and that was it. They were the only people he had, I suppose, face-on-face communication with at the time, like, you know. So one of the things that Jamie loved to do was he was absolutely adored soccer. And I have to be careful now and not say football and soccer. So he loved it. So his parents decided to get him enrolled in this soccer team to just to help the guy along a little, like, you know. But he was involved with the team and everything was going great. But what he did find and what his parents found as well, once the game was over, that Jamie wasn't involved in the post conversations about the game and the conversations before the game and all that kind of stuff. He was just so totally socially excluded from it, like, you know. So his mum had outreached to me. I told about TippyTalk and what it had done for me in my life and my daughter. And she said she wanted to give it a try with her son as well, like, you know, because her son understood how to communicate with pictures. It's what he used to do around the house with parents and grandparents and stuff, like, you know. So she basically kitted out a TippyTalk that was programmed for Jamie's needs, and in particular programmed for Jamie's needs when it came to soccer. So that was all well and good. Jamie got a bit proficient in TippyTalk, and within a matter of a couple of weeks, he started sending text messages to his teammates, you know. And because it was sent via images from Jamie's side, and his teammates were now getting written text, they were able to make that connection with him. They were actually able to understand Jamie and what he was trying to express and what he was saying. Whereas before, they had him excluded. Now, it wasn't maliciously why they had him excluded. They just didn't understand what Jamie was trying to get at.
And he's just then, he's got the opportunity.
He started to bring it in.
Yeah, he's just got the opportunity on the platform that everyone else is using, because they're texting each other, and instead of it being, you know, maybe, you know, on an AAC device, you know, so he's actually, when he's using his picture messaging, it's coming through to the guys just as text messages, and that's how they're. So it's that a level playing field communication wise, in terms of the way that those young people are communicating. They're all texting each other, so he's able to take part in that. He then has the opportunity to engage, and I think, you know, what you said, that's the social explosion, you know, for him in terms of the growth and what he's doing.
You hit the nail on the head there. No, you did, Ben. Like, you hit the nail on the head, because his teammates, it's no different to their daily lives. They're just getting your average text messages that are coming through, like, you know. So like you said there, the opportunity came in when Jamie was able to send the messages out to these guys, like, you know. But from that day to this, the latest story I got back was that not only has Jamie now been able to talk to his soccer mates about post-game and pre-game stuff, where's my training gear and stuff like that, whatever. Jamie is now actually, after being able to make friends, true friends who are part of the soccer team, he's getting invites to pizza nights, he's getting invites to movies, to bowling sessions, all the kind of stuff that he wouldn't have been afforded the opportunity to get this in the past had he not been able to connect with these guys in a technological communication, I suppose, like just like you and I are doing right now over Zoom, like, you know. So
that's great. So, you know, so sports are great, games, any kind of naturally social activity, if you can start to engage in that versus more traditional sort of classroom, you know, teacher at the front of class, you know, flipping the classroom, all of these things, creating more social activity. That's always, you've got to set up that opportunity. And, you know, so from our side, you know, music is a great opportunity to kind of do something socially together. That's what it's all about. And I suppose one story from our side is a student called Stephanie Forrest, who she's a special school, had cerebral palsy, and faced various challenges, both physical and in terms of communication and learning and stuff. But she, you know, loved music and was always looking away for me to be engaged. And she discovered Skoog, and in her own words, she felt it's something she could play. And I can share a video in the chat and stuff about this later. So she began having lessons in Skoog in the same way that you might have lessons in flute or clarinet. And then she actually through that became part of a mainstream orchestra. And so she began playing as a soloist in a mainstream orchestra. She was doing clarinet parts for a project. And, you know, she had support with her, but she had her Skoog that enabled her to play. But the sounds that she were playing were the same, you know, so she was playing a clarinet. So it didn't look like a clarinet, but it sounded like a clarinet, and she was playing those clarinet parts. So she's playing the same music as everyone else. She's able to contribute in the same way. And then through that, you know, the main things from that she said, you know, she got from that was she made friends, she met people, and she sort of achieved things she'd never thought she'd be able to do within her sort of normal kind of context. So being out, you know, being able to play on a level playing field with her musical peers, you know, with technology that enables that through a music, you know, a group situation, means that opens up that world to her. And interestingly now, she's pursuing a career as a musician. That she's part of something called the Digital Ensemble, and they've released a couple of EPs on Google, and you can buy them and download them. And actually she's just back from a tour in Norway, you know, and playing and creating her own music and doing that. So I think, yeah, those, create those opportunities for social interaction, and then you need to support them
Yeah,
with.
I love listening to that there, Ben.
Yeah, support them with the things that are going to make the inclusion in it active and equal. Equal opportunity. I think that's a really important factor around that.
Absolutely, and what you were saying there now as well, it kind of struck a chord with me there as well. Like, like that opportunity that you afforded for is it Samantha, was her name? Stephanie.
Stephanie.
They included in the orchestra, and you were going on through her journey there, and you were explaining what it was like for her to be included first of all with the orchestra and going to Norway, whatever. But even the confidence that this is instilled in that young lady must be through the roof, and coming from an autism parent's perspective, that's something I would really home in on and be concerned about my own daughter's development as she goes through life, like the social exclusion part for my daughter has huge ramifications on how she actually is herself as a person, how her personality develops and how she is around us even in the home. It's really important,
I think
when I look at it, when I think about the social exclusion side of it,
yeah.
I've always got to remember as well, the worst punishment you can give a prisoner who's in jail is to put him in solitary confinement,
Yeah.
And when we're talking about my daughter, with the likes of my daughter who's non-verbal, when she's kind of in that zone, it's pretty close to being solitary confinement when she can't express herself outside the room, even to other individuals out there. So it's just like the story that we had there with Jamie as well. He had that whole solitary confinement, even though he wasn't being isolated physically.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I can agree more. The point about solitary being like one of the worst things you can do, it's a punishment, and through no fault of their own, some people become excluded, and it's trying to find ways of opening up those channels for people and giving them the opportunity to take part, but in an active way. I think that kind of leads into our kind of the next point, moving on from opportunity to looking at this point of interactivity. So to be able to make the situation in a way that the individual is able to, that we're able to actively contribute to this social situation that we're in, this social group, whether we're playing a board game, Dungeons and Dragons, or we're playing in a band. And I suppose, the example that I think, which is quite a good illustration of this is something recently happened in the States, that a young student with Down syndrome who's really keen on music and actively being involved in the local band, the band that plays homecoming band that plays in before the football match on a Friday and stuff like that, and it's a marching band, so there's a lot involved in that, and they have used Skoog to enable her to play in that band, so she's actually able to play an active role. So she plays the flute on Skoog in that, and is able to march with the band, play with the band, and that, by making her role making it interactive for her, allowing her the opportunity to contribute in that context, and that completely opens it up. And I think that interactivity is where that's really where technology, I think, can open some open doors for people, and really create those opportunities, whether it's a simple communication board using images in a classroom, or something more sophisticated and more available, something like Tippy, or using Skoog for kind of music stuff. There's so many different ways of communicating, and we tend to focus on the verbal a lot, and particularly in classrooms and stuff, but I think for creating and supporting the opportunity for people to communicate in different ways or in different styles. So even I think you've got even using something like Tippy in the classroom to facilitate teacher-student interaction, in terms of using that text base to kind of allow the student to actually interact with the teacher in different ways. I think in terms of being able to promote interactivity and that kind of stuff, you've got some examples of how that kind of has come about in different ways.
I do, Ben. Just going back to what you were saying there beforehand, and again, what's coming back to me is I can always look at this from the parents' perspective as well, that young girl marching in the band or whatever, again, the confidence, that extra oomph for life that she gets because of doing this as well. Like, you know, it's the small little things for our children, and when they achieve the small little things, it's actually really, really big things for our kids. Like, you know, it's just back to what you were saying there about the interactivity part of it. This is a great story. I actually love it. Like, you know, and it only came across me there a couple of months back. Like, you know, so there's 26 counties in Ireland anyway. Okay, and I consider Massachusetts the 27th county, because there's probably more Irish people in Massachusetts than there is in the whole country. Like, you know? And that's where this story is coming from. It's coming from Massachusetts. So there was a school in Massachusetts, and there was one particular little guy, and he was using TippyTalk with his teacher. And on this particular day, they had the police force come around to show and tell inside the school. Like, and they've done it in my daughter's school here in Ireland as well. Like, you know, it's great fun. Like, you know, the police turn up and they show their badges, and I don't think they show their guns and stuff like that. Anyway, this one guy got really, really, really super excited that the police were inside his classroom, you know, and non-verbal guy, whatever. So he kept using TippyTalk to sending his teacher, "Hi teacher, I want a high five. Hi teacher, I want a high five." And the messages kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And all the time that the guy was just getting more and more and more excited that the police were in his class. Like, you know, teacher couldn't make out, why is he sending me so many high fives? And she kept over high fiving, and it wasn't happening. And eventually the policeman saw that high five, and he went over high five the little guy. And of course that was it. The messages stopped, and the boy was made up. Like, you know. Yeah. Absolutely ecstatic. It was that first of all the police were there, got to meet him, he got the high five the cop, everything was happy out, like, you know. But that interactivity from communicating with the teacher, and then the teacher finally coming back to him, and then including the cop inside it then as well, like, you know, it's kind of that little triangle was complete, like.
And texting your teacher wouldn't be a normal mode of communication in a classroom. You know, a lot of the time, you know, phone, you know, these things are banned. You know, that type of communication would not usually be facilitated in a standard kind of classroom setting. But if we allow people different routes to communicate, or different ways to kind of make those interactions happen and to have that interactivity, then, you know, you create this inclusion. You give people opportunity to take part, to engage, and to have that social interaction. Just when you were talking there about you know, confidence, and when you can give people, I think, control as well, control of their situation in a way. I was just reminded of this is a slightly little additional point of the story. We really, in the early days of Skoog, when we were doing a lot of the early development and testing, we were working in a lot of schools, you know, across Scotland and further afield. But I remember I was in this one unit, and there was one, we were doing a session with kids, and we were actually trying out kind of various prototypes. And one kid was in a bed, and he was on a ventilator, and he was in the room, but they wouldn't bring him forward for us to kind of work with. And we were like, you know, what about this guy? And they were like, well, you know, he can't move. So, you know, we brought him in to be part of it, but he wasn't being included. He was there, but he wasn't being allowed to take part. And we were like, well, look, no, let's give it a go. Let's try it. And we managed to get it so he could control just one note. But the way his face lit and everything, the teachers came through. So he wasn't able to play a concerto. He wasn't able to kind of do anything sort of complicated, but he had control of one sound. And that was just transformational for him, to be able to play a sound and control it. And we had a duet, and we did, you know, loads of things. You don't need lots of notes. It doesn't need to be, you know, overly showy or complex, but if you can give people that control to interact with their environment in a way that's meaningful to them, it just has such a huge impact. I think it's you know, like the story with the cops, or, you know, the bands, or just giving them even just one note. And it's I think music in some ways is quite bad for this in a way with traditional instruments, in that a lot of children, non-disabled, disabled, when they start playing musical instruments, they experience failure, which isn't a bad thing. You know, we need to learn how to deal with failure and do things, but you need to create some conditions for success to help people grow with confidence and to deal with those challenges. And I think that's, again, you know, the ability to, you know, use a picture message or a device to be able to communicate effectively, you know, to get your message across. And, you know, so when the boy in your story was, you know, when the teacher was able to understand, actually, wait a minute, it's the cop he wants the high five from, and it makes that connection, you get that success. And that's what we're looking for. And, you know, with acoustic or traditional instruments, sometimes you try and make a sound like with a violin, and you start off and it doesn't sound great, and you're like, well, you know, put that down. But with technology and different solutions, we can give that first touch or that first interaction the opportunity for success, and to make that interactivity positive, and then you can build on that and make it more something more.
Absolutely, and what I can take out of that, Ben, is it ties into communication as well when you think about it as well. When we were talking about that one little guy, and he was able to hit that one note just to be included in what was going on in the full, like, you know. I've seen this from my own personal perspective as well. Like, you know, even though it's only one small little thing, and to the outside world it might seem like a big deal, but the backup that young guy would get verbally from his people, from his carers and his friends around, will say, would be huge. Like, you know, and even in that in itself is communication, and as well, which comes into the fold when it links in with the music side of it, inclusion and the communication as well. Like, you know, so, and I see this still to this day with my own daughter. Like, you know, small little action always gets praise, results. There's lots of cheering, there's lots of happiness, there's lots of slaps on the back, all that kind of stuff as well. Like, you know, and I totally get what you're saying as well. I learned to play guitar when I was very, very young, and my God, there was an awful lot of failure, like, you know, but it didn't matter, like, you know, it did not matter, like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And so I think so that's, you know, so thinking about, you know, how you can facilitate this, you make sure there are opportunities for social interaction and activity, you know, whether it's class visits or games or sports or music, you know, things where people are doing things together, where they're able, whether there's interactivity built in, then supporting them with the right technology or systems or learning aid, whatever it is, to help the students actually make it interactive, so that they can have a voice, so that they can contribute and they can make choices and actually play an active role in things. It's so important. And I think there, you know, technologies around now that can really make such a huge difference in that kind of arena. And then I think the big part then, sort of taking the interactivity further, and particularly for what you're really sort of, it's a wider question of supporting different styles of communication, because like I say, you know, communication is just it's key to this. It's how this is going to happen, by facilitating the communication between individuals and groups. And if you open up yourself to the kind of multi-sensory approach, where it's not just about spoken or written word, say, and you're thinking more widely, then if you make it multi-sensory, then you're automatically supporting different types of communication, different types of, or different styles of learning, and different people from different backgrounds. And that, I think, is the other key to this, is being open to different approaches and making it multi-sensory. And I think there was a story I remember you telling me about a visually impaired parent and how they were interacting with their family and using Tippy in a different way.
Oh,
and,
yes.
It really highlights that.
Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah, that was one that really choked me up, actually, when I heard about it. It was a woman based in Cleveland, Ohio, and this lady was blind, and she had a son. His name was Joshua, and he was non-verbal, with autism. And she also had two younger siblings, two little girls who were verbal, like, you know. And pre-TippyTalk days, the only way that she could communicate with her son was through her daughters, like, you know, and it was pretty difficult, like, you know. Joshua would bring pictures of his desires, wants, needs to his sisters, who in turn would communicate to their mom what Joshua's needs were. So big, complicated triage of communication going around, like, you know. So we introduced TippyTalk to Joshua with his speech and language pathologist, and she worked really, really close to him, like, you know. And originally it was just to communicate fun things for Joshua to do. One of the things he loved to do was play with shaving foam, and other things he loves to do was play with water, like, you know. So she kind of got that involved, like, you know. But then she was able to start to build out Joshua's basic desires, wants, and needs to communicate out to his mom. So what his mom done then was she was obviously getting text messages from Joshua on her phone. But because she was blind, she couldn't read these text messages, but she had the text-to-speech app built into her phone. So the great part about this was Joshua was now able to text his mom, and a voice was coming out of the phone. And the one that really got me about this story was the speech and language just Holly just put me on the phone one day to one of Josh's sisters, and she said, "Thank you so much. My brother can talk." Like, you know, even though it was just a text message that was being read back through Mom's phone, in the child's opinion, her brother was now talking. Like, you know, so that was one of the huge things that came in from that. And like when you were talking about multi-sensory, we were connecting a blind mom with a non-verbal child with verbal children who didn't have autism as well. So there's a lot of dynamics flowing around there and that, like, you know.
Yeah, so the Tippy as a platform and technology there, so it really truly multi-sensory, going, like you say, you know, so going from the images through to speech, you know, text to speech, that then enables everyone to be part of that social interaction. So there you go, there's the social inclusion. Everyone has an active role, everyone's able to communicate and interact with everyone else, and it's sort of truly multi-sensory. I mean, when I was thinking about this from our side, I mean, there's, you know, music and Skoog, there's so many kind of multi-sensory elements, but one of them, in a way, I think I was reminded of as it's one of my favorite moments in the business to date. There's you know, at Christmas time that we're coming up to now, and kind of the holiday season, there's obviously, it's in schools, there's the Christmas shows that are being put on, and you know, a lot of schools do that, and how they're including different students in different ways is always really interesting. And you know, some people are taking a wider approach to, instead of just, you know, some kids are singing or some kids are acting, you know, with certain technologies, other students can maybe control the lights or add sound effects or act different parts in different ways, you know, by using technology in different ways. And I remember getting this panicky, this worried call from a music teacher for just near Christmas, and she was, the message is that the teacher has rung us, left a message going that she can't find her camel burps, and please could we help? Because the kid that she was working with, who had a range of challenges, he was using Skoog to control camel sound effects for the nativity play, and so he was contributing to the play, not as an actor, but by contributing these camels. But she'd lost the samples, so we had to kind of express in a taxi a little stick drive with these camel burps and stuff on it, off to the show that they were doing. And then he got them, and he was able to play this kind of, he was essentially a comedian, but these comedy parts in the show. So he was able to actually participate in this nativity play, using a chair, but by controlling sound effects within the play and adding them, you know, at humorous points and these kind of things. So again, multi-sensory is not just about speech or not about visuals, but, you know, doing sound effects for animals as part of a play in terms of delivering and acting kind of thing, and him being included in that performance, and that whole social element of it being a community experience, you know, so the nativity where all the parents are there and all the other students are there watching from the different age groups, and he's actively involved in that because he's able to add this kind of multi-sense element in technology. So that's my kind of my Christmas show bit there, which I quite,
I love it.
Still makes me smile.
The camel burps that saved Christmas, eh?
Yeah. Camel burps that saved Christmas. That's a good line. Yeah.
That's the tag you're going to have to use in it from now on, like, you know.
Yeah,
Brilliant,
for sure.
Brilliant.
So I think those, you know, when we were chatting, there were the kind of three kind of core things. I think that if you're, you know, whether it's in class or whether it's an after school club or even at home, you know, those kind of three things of make sure there's the opportunity for social sort of group kind of dynamics and things, and going for a meal is another one, you know. You know, that's a social group activity. So, and then, you know, in terms of being able to choose different things and interact with that, playing games, music is a great one, obviously, sports naturally have a lot of group activities, but support, it's not necessarily enough just to have the activity. You need to then support those involved to be able to be interactive, to play a dynamic role in that, to make choices, to have their voice heard, and being able to support that either with, you know, whether it's with technology or just care and help, you know, whatever it is you need to do to promote that and create those opportunities. And then, you know, I think the best way to do that is be open to different multisensory approaches, you know, whether it's using sounds or whether it's images or text or picture to text, you know, whatever it may be. I think underneath all of these is communication. I think one thing that I think that's, I don't know, we haven't spoken about it so much, but we talked a lot with various people before. In situations where students are using communication aids as their kind of way of communicating, or AAC, or those different platforms, enabling them to have kind of playful interaction with through that platform. So often so not non-essentially when they're developing that, they babble and play with sound and are singing songs. And I think looking at how we can use technology in different ways to support the fun elements. And it was interesting hearing you talking about the son of the blind mother in Ohio, who building out in the additional, when you talk about with Tippy, starting with the wants and needs. The wants and needs are fun, creative. You're talking about fun things, creative things that you like to do. So having starting with fun, starting with play, starting with supporting those really important. So the communication is it's not dry. It's not this kind of factual, I'd like a B923 in paragraph 12 situation, mother. It's
gotcha. Yeah.
Let's play this. Let's do that. And I think that's, and again, or engaging in musical play and games with kids who are engaged with AAC is really important, because you would often do that via more just kind of vocal kind of interaction, or babbling, or kind of playground kind of nursery rhymes and that kind of thing. So looking at different ways you can support playful communication and play, I think, is a big part of this, and seeing how that develops now that we're seeing so much more technology that's actively supporting the development of communication and ongoing as well, through the lives of individuals. It's not just about starting, often these are the platforms that people are taking, and maybe that, going back to the first story of the kids in the soccer team, they're all using technology to communicate, via text or kind of instant messaging and stuff. And we need to
absolutely,
maybe we need to look at how we make that more playful.
Absolutely, I want you to think about it like even right now, you and I, we're connected here using technology, and people outside are going to be connected in by technology as well, and just try and imagine for a split second if your phone was taken away from you, if you had no access to your email, your text messaging, your YouTube. Imagine it was just gone for 48 hours or a weekend. How would you feel? I know I wouldn't feel good at all if I didn't have that connection immediately with the outside world. I know that my work would be piled through the roof at the end of the day, and things wouldn't be good, I think ourselves into the position of the people who don't have that connection via technology. It's a big deal. It is a big deal. Yeah. They should be afforded the exact same right as you and I have. So technological equality, I like to call it.
Democratization of communication or something. But on that, so when if like the loss of my phone, whilst I would be concerned about my work, I think the thing that would stress me most is not being able to have that interactivity, closeness with my family. And that would be the number one hit on that. And actually, then when you look like that, you're like, well, absolutely. That's what you need. That's what everyone, this is what everyone needs is that access. Yeah. So I think that's an interesting place to kind of pause. And one thing written down here, I wanted to just kind of after kind of sort of pulling it together and summarizing that, I suppose one of the questions about what's in the what does the future hold for you guys at the moment? Have you got anything new that you're working on, or do you want to kind of share?
Ben, we have a couple of things coming up along in our way at the minute. One of the big things was it's kind of it stems back to the story there about Jamie and the soccer team. So Jamie was able to be included with we call him the 90%, Jamie being the 10%.
Yeah.
So then we found that the 10% or the 90% were now communicating back with Jamie, and this is in a soccer, this is in a social setting, whatever. So now what we want to do in the future is incorporate this into a classroom setting. So I'll just give you an example. So you're talking about the kid who's in the special ed class in the school, who now has the ability to connect out with all the other people in the school as well. And I'm talking about this kid who would never normally be connected with the likes of captain of the football team or people, I suppose, in the high society of the school world, we'll say, would never normally be connected. Now with technology, we'll be able to connect these guys where the captain of the football team can now communicate with the guy who's not involved in the special ed class. So then promoting kind of I suppose, social inclusion across the whole school grounds. So now we're connecting with the 90% with the 10% rather than just having the 10% connected out and letting
Yeah.
their messages go into the ether. Like, and ultimately, what we'd really love to see and go along with TippyTalk then is actually have peer-to-peer communication from people who don't have special abilities to people who have special abilities, like, you know, backwards and forwards. Like, you know, that's the goal, and that's what we want to get, like, you know, to provide that full inclusivity with TippyTalk for the future. Like, you know, what about yourselves? What have you got going on with Skoog?
We've got well, there's a couple of things. I mean, I think one thing that we're you know, we've recently joined these guys. You know, we've got this new presence in the US with Accessible Tech, and that's really exciting. And one of the things we're doing soon is we're going to be announcing something called School of Skoog, which is a collection of online resources. So one of the things, you know, talking about inclusion, you know, I say promoting this kind of inclusive music and multi-sensory stuff in the classroom, we need to make sure that, well, as well as, you know, making sure that there's technologies there and supporting activity, we've got to support the teachers and the parents and the people who are there kind of helping these things, promoting this stuff happening. And so School of Skoog is a collection of resources over the years, working with lots of different educators, parents, specialists, of resources to help that happen and to help music and multi-sensory learning flourish in those contexts using technology like Skoog. So that's coming soon. And the other thing that we're working on that's exciting is looking at Chromebooks and opening, enabling connectivity through to Chromebooks, which at the moment Skoog is, you know, on iPad and iOS, and we'll be soon adding Chromebooks to that, which will be really exciting to kind of open up, you know, to part of accessibility is making these things available and on as many platforms as possible and to as many people as possible. So that's a really exciting. So it's happening. That's a watch this space, but we're working on that right at the moment and hoping to announce on that soon.
Cool, excellent. I have one last question for you, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
What does social inclusion mean to you? And that's just for you, for yourself. Like, what does it mean to you? Like, I know what it means to me. Like.
For me, it means having giving everyone the opportunity to take part and play an active role. I think the opportunity thing, having that provide, you know, and it doesn't need to be, you know, you can provide the opportunity and someone can say, no, it's fine, it's not for me. But making sure that those opportunities are there, and there's a whole lot of stuff that unfolds under that. But I think we need to make sure that we offer the opportunities to particularly young people, and make sure they don't feel excluded and they're not subject to some kind of isolation just because of. I mean, an example of this in the way, in a musical sense, is that in my daughter's school, you know, it's a primary school in Edinburgh. You know, so in Scotland we have you get to learn a musical instrument for a year at primary school, and it just so happens that at this school they were doing cello because the teacher there could teach cello, couldn't teach other things. And the way they decided who got to play cello was they hung the cello in the case on the student's back, and if you were tall enough to carry it, you got to play it. So shorter students were excluded from that opportunity on the basis of height in 2012 or whenever it was, which is just mind blowing. But so we need to make sure we create opportunities that are inclusive and not exclusive like that. And that is the starting point for social inclusion. We have to make sure the opportunities are available. And if they're just, you know, if they're physically challenged by things, then do what needs to be done to make that not the case. You know, we need to make those opportunities happen. So for me, it's about creating opportunity. What about you?
When I think about it, basically, it's living a longer, happier, and healthier life. You know, like we're wired to be social creatures as humanists. Like, no, we are. Like, whether you like it or not. Like,
absolutely.
You know, we flock together in cities and towns and villages. We're always around one another. Like, you know, we're being social all the time. You know, so when I look at it for myself, like if I was excluded socially from the community around the place, my mental health would suffer greatly. I would go down into a place that I don't think I'd like to venture into, like, you know, ultimately causing discomfort and depression, anxiety, all the negative feelings and emotions that we don't really like to go through too often as human beings, like, you know. So for me, social inclusion, the biggest part of this, it's a path to happiness, like, you know, and it's up to us to tap into it, to go along that journey and go along that path, like, you know, and even when I think about it as well, like, you know, social inclusion with communication, like, you know, like if we've got troubles in our personal lives, if you've got emotional trouble, if you've got mental health problems, we talk about this. We go to somebody, we include ourselves socially with that person to talk our stuff out, so we don't have to go through it alone, like, you know. I'm a strong believer in that, like, you know, especially the effects it has on mental health, and especially the mental health for people just like my daughter who don't have that ability to communicate effectively, I suppose.
It's quality of life in essence, isn't it? You know, the more we're including socially, it's about improving quality of life. And I think that, yeah, that's what we need to do. And
Absolutely.
I think there's lots of ways of doing it, but hopefully if you're watching it, you found this interesting, hopefully informative. And if you, I think, you know, we have, obviously there's lots to talk about in this area. And if you're interested in chatting to one of our experts or a member of the team to see how they can help you design sort of social inclusion or some solutions for your classroom, or just finding out more about TippyTalk or Skoog Music, then please do. There's a link in the chat below, or you can go to inclusion.tippy-talk.com, and there's a page there where you can book a meeting and schedule a time, or just get some more information. Just reach out to a member of the Accessible Tech team, and they'll be more than happy to help and connect through. This webinar is being recorded, and it'll be sent through. There'll be a link in your inbox as well. For those of you that weren't maybe registered and weren't able to make it, we've recorded it. We'll push that out. It'll be made live online, so you can watch it at your leisure. Can stream back and listen to the different bits and pieces that we've chatted about. And I think that's it. Yeah. So do you know, share the webinar on. Get in touch with a member of the team at inclusion.tippy-talk.com through the web to kind of chat more about this and find out more about the different technologies we've been talking about, and find out how that might play a role in educational setting or at home for you. And other than that, I look forward to chatting to you again soon, Rob. And if anyone's got any questions, Ben, please do just get in touch through the websites.
Good stuff.
Cool. Take care. Chat to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.